Now, there's going to be much more to do. Exercises throughout the day. We'll come back later for exercises too. I have 3 words for you right now. They are eat, pray, love. And the woman who's starting it off.
This is your life, and you are the only person who can be the hero of it.
She put 3 simple words together
Eat, pray, love!
and launched a whole new women's movement.
Millions of women on their own spiritual journey have been moved by Elizabeth Gilbert's phenomenal book. It was a year-long journey of eating, praying, and finally loving. You have to ask yourself those burning, essential questions in your life. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What am I here for?
Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love became an international phenomenon.
I've been this excited since Bono was here.
The New York Times bestseller for over 200 weeks, selling more than 10 million copies worldwide. It even inspired a blockbuster film.
Know who you are. Where did you come from? What are you made of? You've got to find your way back home again.
Her TED Talk has over 8.5 million views.
Don't be afraid. Don't be daunted. If we think about it this way, it starts to change everything.
The New York Times named her latest novel one of the best books of 2013, and Time magazine calls her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Way to go, Liz!
Alright, I don't want to brag, you guys, but I'm from New Jersey. I'm looking forward to this for the whole tour. I live here. We're in my house now. I do not pump my own gas. Let's go. Should we begin? All right, my job here today is to talk to you about the stories that we tell about our lives and the meaning that these stories bring to us and why it is so important that we find that meaning. My own version of this story, my own search for meaning, began over 15 years ago, around the time that I was turning 30. A really strange and unexpected thing happened to me at that moment in my life, which is that my life completely fell apart. And the reason this was so strange and so unexpected is that up until that point, I actually kind of looked like somebody who had it together. I was married, had a nice house, had a good job, and my husband and I were starting to talk about having a family soon. And the reason I was on that particular path in life is that I had done exactly what my mother before me did, and her mother before her, and their grandmothers before them, and all the women in my family's lineage since the dawn of recorded history. I had gotten married young. And now it was expected of me that I would have children of my own and carry that lineage forward. In other words, a perfect life. Everything was going exactly according to plan. And that's when I started to totally lose my mind. Now, I'm sure that none of you have ever felt like you were totally losing your minds. So I'll just give you a little helpful information about what it feels like. I was in a constant state of anxiety, depression, fear, shame, disassociation, dislocation. I pretty much stopped eating, and then I pretty much stopped sleeping. And night after night, I would find myself pacing through the dark rooms of my house like some kind of hungry ghost, searching for I could not have even told you what. And invariably, usually around 3 o'clock in the morning, I would end up in the bathroom with the door locked behind me, sobbing my heart out on the bathroom floor, desperately trying to figure out where things had gone so wrong and why I was so miserable. Anybody ever been there, bathroom floor, 3 a.m.? You know, you're familiar with the location? You know what your floor tiles look like from 1 inch away? That was me. That was me, because a voice kept coming to me in the night. A voice that seemed to emanate from the center of the universe itself. A voice that I really did not want to be hearing because it was terribly inconvenient. And that voice kept saying to me with increasing clarity, "This is not your destiny. This path that you are on, this is not the path you are meant to be on. You got to get out of here. You have to completely change your life." And I would respond to that voice with this desperate question: how? How am I supposed to completely change all of this? This marriage, this home, everybody's expectations in me, my expectations in me. Show me how to completely change my life. And please, God, while you are at it, if you would be so kind, show me how to completely change my life, but in such a manner that it doesn't cause any trouble. To which the universe would look down upon me night after night with infinite compassion and go, "Oh yeah, honey, sorry, it really doesn't work that way." "See, you have a choice in front of you here, kid," the voice would say. "You can stay in your life exactly the way it is now. You can suck it up, white-knuckle your way through it, learn how to endure your unhappiness, a lot of people do. Or you can completely change your life. But if you are planning on changing your life, do not expect it to be easy, my dear. Do not expect it to be painless." And I'm afraid the universe was absolutely correct in this regard, because the hard reality about transformation, real transformation, soul transformation, life-shifting transformation, is that it's never easy, it's never painless. If it were, we would all be doing it all the time just for fun, right? Like every 5 minutes, changing our lives, and we don't, because change is scary. Change is all about motion. Motion is all about uncertainty, and we are deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty. It reminds me of a sign that I saw one time. I was at a gym working out, and there was these exercise machines, and some overzealous manager had handwritten this sign in block letters and hung it above the machine, and it said, "Warning, any movement whatsoever brings the risk of injury." Just a little over the top, and definitely a little overprotective, and clearly written by somebody who did not want to get sued or already had, right? But it is also inarguably 100% true. All movement does bring the risk of injury, which is why all too often in our lives we do not move. We stay in situations that are not working. We stay in life paths that are bringing grace and joy and light to nobody, not to us, not to anybody else. And most people, myself very much included, we stay in those situations until the day comes that the alternative to transformation becomes even worse and scarier than the transformation itself. Until the day comes where you simply cannot stay in that situation another day. Until you're willing to take that risk, until you're willing to stand on your own 2 feet and to speak your own truth, and maybe start kicking down some doors. And that is a momentous occasion in anybody's life, the day when a human being stands on the brink of real change. As the Christian mystic Meister Eckhart wrote almost 800 years ago, "He who would be what he ought to be must stop being what he is." And if you are standing in just such a moment as this in your life right now, if you have finally acknowledged, or perhaps even said out loud, that it is time for you to stop being what you have always been in order to become at last that which you ought to be, that's what you know you are destined to be, all I can say, having been there in that place, all I can say is good luck and hold on tight, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. It is. Because in between here, the person that you have always been, and here, the person that you know you must someday become, there lies a vast, wild, unexplored, dangerous territory that you are going to have to figure out how to navigate safely. And the only way I've ever seen it done, the only way I've ever seen anybody get from here to here with their dignity and their soul and their perspective intact, is when they decide to regard that journey as a great and epic quest, as the single most important mission of their life. And that's what I really want to talk to you today about: quests, missions, pilgrimages, crusades, the brave journeys that we take in our lives when we move out of the old and the familiar into the new and the unfamiliar. I've always been really fascinated by quests, and I feel like the more we understand them, the better chance we have to put the chaos of transition in our own lives into some sort of order and sense. Most of what I've learned about quests, I learned from studying the work of the brilliant 20th century teacher and scholar, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was an amazing genius of a man. He spent his entire life studying the myths, the fairy tales, and the religious origins of every culture on Earth, looking for clues within those stories about our common humanity. And over decades of study, Joseph Campbell was able to determine that there is this one story that never goes away, this one story that we have been telling since we became human, that we are still telling today, that is told in every language and every corner on Earth, and it never changes. Joseph Campbell called that one universal human narrative the hero's journey. And when I break it down for you into its central elements, you are going to recognize it, because it is the most familiar story that we have as human beings. The hero's journey, it always begins the same way. It begins when some restless youngster in some distant remote outpost begins to feel the call for the quest. Perhaps there is a helpless maiden who needs to be rescued somewhere, or an evil tyrant king who needs to be overthrown, or some dangerous monster who needs to be killed. At first, the boy will refuse the call for the quest out of fear, out of a reluctance to shake up the status quo of his life. He'll say, "Don't ask me to do this thing, don't look at me. I don't have the power, I don't have the tools, I don't have the magic, I'm just a kid, I'm just a guy, I'm not your hero, don't look at me." But the quest won't leave him alone, the call keeps coming, until finally he finds the courage to embark on the adventure. And that moment, when he leaves the comforts of the familiar and enters into the new, that's what Joseph Campbell called crossing the threshold. And once you have done it, you can never go back to the way things were before. Once he has crossed the threshold into the quest, the boy will immediately begin to endure what Joseph Campbell called the road of trials. This is the series of unbelievably difficult obstacles, challenges, and temptations that he has to figure out how to negotiate in this new world where none of the old rules make sense. Along the road of trials, he will meet the same iconic figures who show up whenever and wherever this story is told. There's going to be a trickster. There's going to be some wise old lady who gives really good advice. There will be friends who look like enemies, enemies who look like friends, and you'll have to figure it all out. Critically, at some point along the way, the boy will suffer what Joseph Campbell called the dark night of the soul, also known as the belly of the whale. This is the lowest moment in the hero's journey, where he begins to doubt himself completely. He considers quitting, or perhaps even dying. And from that place, broken and humbled, he must call upon divine assistance for help. And that divine supernatural guidance will arrive, and with it, the boy will discover talents and powers that he never knew he had before. Talents and powers, interestingly enough, that were always within him, but he had never put into play. And now he's got them, and now he's going to need them as he faces the climax of the story, the battle. In the course of the battle, the boy will have to face down whatever it is in the world he fears most. And in that battle, he will lose his fear, and only then will he emerge victorious, a hero to inspire his people for generations to come. Does this story sound familiar? It should. It really should, because it is basically every great epic tale you have ever heard. From Gilgamesh to the Buddha, to Jason and the Argonauts, to the Odyssey, to Moses, to King David, to King Arthur, to Luke Skywalker, to Harry Potter, to Bambi, to Nemo. This is the story that we never stop telling. It is told in every language on Earth, in every culture on Earth. Societies on opposite sides of the planet who've never had any interaction with each other tell this same story exactly the same way. The heroes' names might change, the settings might change, but the storyline never changes a bit, never has, and never will. In fact, Joseph Campbell argued that this story is so universal, so eternal, that the hero's journey is not something that we were ever taught. It's not something that we ever had to learn. The hero's journey is simply who we are as human beings. It is threaded, that narrative, into our central DNA. And as such, it is the greatest gift that we have for making sense of the trials of our own lives. It shows us how to cross the threshold. It shows us how to walk the road of trials. It shows us how to choose our allegiances, how to reach for divine assistance, how to fight our battles, how to kill our monsters, how to lose our fear. It maps out the entire journey for us. It never goes away, this story, because we cannot live without it.